And then that just goes down there. All right. I could do that. Do that later on.
Yeah.
Okay. So, welcome to Orlando Python, everyone. Who is here for the first time? Wow.
Okay.
No, that's good. I honestly, unless we have a part 1 or part 2 series going, there's no through line other than Python is fun, as far as I'm concerned. So that's the more people I can have coming out, that's pretty cool. Especially for this one, I noticed that there are definitely some younger people that normally come, which is great, especially when the topic is how do I make a living as a developer? Because you tend to still need to work on that no matter how long you've been in the business. It kind of changes every couple of years, it seems like. And, well, the first thing we're going to get into is we're going to look at a library called library for the Stripe API. Speaking of getting paid, as an app developer, if you're making a service, you're making an application, there's really one thing you don't want to do, and that is make sure that you there's one thing you're going to do. Make sure you sanitize your inputs. Number 2, do not store credit card data, because that is a lot of hurt. That is probably not what you want as a single developer or a small team. So Stripe, Square, these tend to be the 2 largest modern credit card processing companies. Then they usually can handle credit cards, checks, and a bunch of other things. So we're going to take a look at one of them, but we're going to take a look at Stripe, but the process and management is pretty much the same with all these different companies. So let's dive right in. So this is most people's first time. I have made it a hobby at this point to come into a Python meetup with domain experience and no plan, and come up with a live coding session where we create something fun, and it seems to work out every time so far. So just let everyone have proper expectations going into this. So Stripe account, I just created this new one, Python, Orlando Python, and you can do the entire thing from here. You don't need an app. Just as an example, what we need to do. Yeah, we're just starting. So, as a developer, let's say you're building, you want to process. Hey, I have this bit of software, but you need a license key. So pay me $20. I will give you a license key to use my product. So you need to have a product. And by the way, we're just kind of stepping through this. You can do all of this programmatically. We'll see that in the library. But to get a usable thing going, we're going to use this where we can, and then use the library to process payments. So let's say this product name, or the product name is, we'll just be bland and call it service key. And everything else is just is optional. So ta-da, we have a product. We can, here we go. So recurring quantity. Oh, nope, product. Did I mean invoices? It might just mean invoices instead. Or did I not click the right thing? Nope. Okay. So it might just be invoices. Okay, let's switch it up. Let's say you're having a service that has a monthly recurring transaction. Let's just keep on rolling. So you have a service key. Let's just say it's monthly. This monthly basic plan for whatever. You can generate an ID, or they'll just generate a UUID sort of thing for you. Let's say it's a recurring quantity, and it costs $10 per month. Simple enough. And you can put a trial period there, add pricing plan. So we now have a product with a product ID, and we have a plan with its own plan ID for $10 a month. Now, let's go ahead and we're going to go ahead and create a new project. And on the off chance that it is not there,
every product has to have a pricing plan, even if it's a single payment.
Even if it's a single payment? Okay. Thank you for looking that up.
I did this in past life using their PHP language.
Got it. Okay. So, Stripe. Let's just open Python now. Actually, before we look into that, I know I had a link to it in the docs, or in the link to the docs in the meetup description. By the way, fastest way to get to the meetup is pyorl.org if you want to follow along. That'll take you to the meetup page, and then I put links to the Stripe homepage and the Stripe docs in the meetup description. That's a good place to start. That'll get you right here. And it's already pre-selected for Python. And I'll make this bigger, if it will let me. Oh, Wi-Fi password is up on the board. All right. Oh, okay. So, oh, okay. Live stream is just slowing my computer to a crawl, apparently. Or Chrome is just being a hog. It's always Chrome. Okay, let's just start that tab again. Okay, just going to leave it at that. So, there's a REST API. It should auto-select the Python here. Cross your fingers. Chrome, I swear, I will open this. I will open Safari. All right. So, looking at the Python examples. Welcome. It's wonderful January. Oh yeah, sorry for not having a meeting in December, but I figured no one would want to meet on our typical fourth Tuesday of the month because it was December 25th. I figured no one would come.
If you do manage to do something like that, make sure you hold it up on.
I did bring alcohol this time. However, at least for January, the fourth Tuesday of the month was actually last week, but I was busy. Sorry about that too. Okay, moving on to Stripe. So here we have Python, and here we have a Python REPL. We can follow along. Move that up so everyone can see the bottom. So just going to import Stripe. We have Stripe. Now, our API key. Notice this SK. This is secret key test account because as any good developer dealing with payment systems should know to check is that if you haven't seen this yet, we are working with test data first. That is when you create a new account, that is enabled by default. You must explicitly change into production. Okay, so in developers, we have our API keys, and our API keys, or actually, it's not private key, publishable key. Our secret key is going to be if we want to push things like plan changes. We only need the publishable key to make charges, which is great. Oh, and essentially, you can think of this as charge and read only for the publishable key. So all we need to do is set stripe.api key to our publishable key, and we should be good to go with most of what we need to do in here. Oh, SK? No, secret key. Sorry. Ignore that. The other fun thing about the live stream is while this is up, anyone could technically ruin our fun by spamming our account right now. However, we only get about 3 or 4 people watching the live stream. I trust you all. I trust the 4 people watching our live stream.
That's when you create a script and then do it yours.
I'm too trusting. Anyway, Stripe API. So we have our secret key in place. We can immediately go and just make a charge. Or this is retrieving a charge. This assumes that a charge is already in place. But one of the nice things with the Stripe API, and we'll look at this later on when we go to do an example web charge, is your backend servers will never, ever, ever see customer credit card data. You are given a token, and that token then tells Stripe to associate an account with a charge. It's a wonderful system. It really protects you as a developer. So we made a product, and we made a plan for that product. We can go request that information down here to products, and we should be able to just pull all products. Scrolling, scrolling, scrolling. Here we go. We can create a product programmatically, which we're allowed to do because of our secret key. There's the example response and all the documentation. Here's retrieve a product. So stripe.product.retrieve and the product ID. I love simple APIs. So let's just say product equals stripe.product. And if you're not familiar too much with Python, the convention is a capital name there is we're doing a class. And because we are not initializing anything, this is what is called a class method. So it returns an instance of a class based on previous information. So this .retrieve is why am I copying that? What this is telling Python to do, if we go back into our billing so we can retrieve our product ID, is it is telling the Stripe API to look in our list of products and create a new product object based on an existing one. If that is too foreign sounding, let me know if there's like me to go into topics more in depth, either after the meetup or at a future meetup, because classes there's so much information on classes. I could do a 3-part series on that.
Before you.
Good catch.
I see what you did there.
Okay, so we now have a product.
using an IDE, you don't have tab autocomplete.
This is true, but I don't have to compile anything in a REPL. We'll make a sample Flask app and then jump in an IDE. But active product timestamp, a Unix timestamp when it was created. There's our ID again, and it doesn't really have that much more information in there except, say, a name that we gave it. We can do the same thing with plans. So let me just do stripe.plan. There's our class plan. It I before E. It pretty much all of their base consumables in this the Stripe library follow the same API. So create, retrieve, all of that. Go back in here. We can go to here and grab our plan ID. And there's our plan. Very nice library. So we want to make a charge. And go back into here. Charges. Scroll down to our create. There we go. So this trying to rack my brain on this. Basic charge. This is, hey, give me $20. I'll run it through the API. Give me $20. Interesting. You said you've worked with this before.
Yeah,
I know this.
Correct myself about the pricing plan on a single purchase. No.
Okay.
This is how you do a single purchase.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, this is how you can do a single purchase. Even though it's not required, there should be in this sidebar here. Yeah, if you have existing customers, and let's say they have a credit card on file, you can have it auto charge their credit card on file by giving it the ID. There should also be a token item in here. You can include shipping information with the charge if you need sources. Okay, so there's no token in this one. But something I did notice in the Stripe API, and I don't know if you've seen this in other ones, the amount is the number of pennies. So that the dollars times 100, and that's the number that they expect. So if you had something for $18.99, it'd be $1,899 in the amount.
Pretty much all kinds of software.
Okay, I wasn't sure how prevalent that was. It certainly is easier than trying to maintain a float value.
Stay better at rest too.
Yeah. Okay. So
The documentation is dynamic because what I'm seeing, the key is different from over here.
yeah, they're generating random keys. Yeah. These guys have really good documentations. If you wanted to do everything with curl, you can just change the tab. I don't know how fat. There it goes. Considering how slow it was being. But yeah, you just stay on the same page. It changes to whatever you need it to be. In theory, I bet we could use that the secret key test that's in that documentation there. And it's just randomly generated.
That's
Yeah,
what's in the documentation is specific to this account. It's dynamically generated. So
That-
it's all there. You can always cut and paste it.
That's,
Oh, that's cool.
actually, yeah, let's see. SK, it starts with ARSR.
Yeah.
And if we go, actually, if we just
Yeah.
scroll back up here.
I'm looking at mine.
Yeah, ARSR.
G6V4 is one of my.
That's pretty slick.
Yeah, isn't that awesome?
That's pretty slick. Hey, internet cookies are good for something. All right. So just to show making a charge, let's just do that. Again, same API, except we'll use create. So let's say charge equals stripe.charge.create let's say we're going to charge $100, so 100, 100. By the way, if you're running Python 3.5 or 6, you're allowed to use underscores to make your numbers look nice, and it takes the underscores out before running the source code. So it's purely aesthetic when you're creating. It really is meant more for, let's say if I wanted to write 1 million, you could do that if you wanted to. But in this case, saying $100, 100 underscore 00, kind of also looks nice.
But aren't you supposed to do 1,000? No.
Well, I was just saying $100.
Yeah, but 100.
100 times 100.
100,
Yeah.
You don't have to mention it that way.
Oh, get someone in.
Yeah, I was the last person.
All right. I think amount and currency are the only things. So USD, US dollars, CSD, Canadian. CAD, I think is the code for them. And those should be positional arguments. So this should be fine. Invalid API key. That doesn't seem right. I'm just going to copy this in just in case something was weird. Interesting. Now it should just be the API key. Just in case. Yeah. Must have source or customer. Yeah, that was really weird. Invalid API key when it really was just complaining about the amount and currency keys. Whatever. Hey, you never know really what's going on until you try to break things more. Okay. So source or customer. Now, TOK MasterCard. You'll notice they have a comment in there obtained with Stripe.js. This is assuming that you're using they have a web library that you can embed on websites to make these. So let's just see if TOK MasterCard does anything. That's more saying that it was a pre-run source from a MasterCard who the customer entered in a credit card on file.
So the documentation states it's optional.
Well, request must provide either a source or a customer. So that's coming directly out of why we can't use it. Now, if we scroll down here, customer, the ID, the existing customer must be, will be charged in the request optional or source.
Scroll back up.
Receipt email.
No, I thought I saw customer.
There was, yeah.
Maybe they don't like the way you're providing the charge under underscore.
Well, a payment source to be charged can be this can be the ID of a card on file, a bank account on file. Okay, a source, a token, or a connected account. So source would actually be where you put the token. How I mentioned, your backend service will never ever see credit card information. When the credit card information goes through on their web library that you embed in a web page, it goes to their server. If successful and is a valid card and it can be charged, they return back either this is an existing card and here's the email that it's associated with, but regardless, it will always say, here's a token that you can use to make your next charge associated with this transaction. And that's where this would come in. So probably that TOK MasterCard is either a static debugging one, because they have it's either a static debugging one or they're just using it as a placeholder.
Question on the token, does it have a time to live on the token?
I don't know. That would be a nice thing to look up. I would be surprised if it doesn't. Let's just see.
I think it's just random generated because I've got tokens in my
Okay.
documentation.
Oh, yeah,
Okay.
that's fine.
Yeah, I know they have a bunch of static things. The token is going to be UUID or UUID like that you receive back. When we get to the web embed, they have a giant list of static or of testing credit card numbers that you can use. So if you give a certain credit card number, this one will work for an American card, and this one will work and is specifically an Amex, or this one is a Visa. This one will error out. This one will just be an invalid card. This one, the card will work, but provide a could not complete transaction error in the back end. Giant list. They've done their job for the developer experience,
So
in my
here
opinion.
it's written, the token is generated from stripe.js. So I just looked up what stripe.js is. It's basically when you sign up, you enter your credit card details.
Mhm.
On successful verification, they return a token, and that is what it is.
Yep. And I think they're, yeah. So
And the token is single use only and has a short life. That's from their docs.
So as a TTL.
yeah, I would be very surprised if the TTL was more than 15 minutes. It's probably
There's
significantly
another
less than that.
Usually up to 10 minutes.
It's 10 minutes. Okay. So yeah, just to actually run that through, let's just use the TOK MasterCard, which is guaranteed to be a testing token. Source equals TOK MasterCard. Okay. And we now have a charge with a bunch of null information because we charge their credit card. We don't care where they live. Although when we look at the checkout library, the list of fields you can embed on there, just with a true a Boolean value, is pretty nice. You can autofill emails. You can enable or disable. They must give me their address because maybe this is a subscription service, and we need that information. So just to show another one, we can do stripe charge. I think they had a list one in there. Yeah, bound method. And that just returns a paginated view or object of all of the different charges that have been made. And we can also do this for our plans and our products as well. But quickly, moving back into our dashboard, if we come back over here, should be in orders. Maybe. No, payments.
No,
Back. Yeah. So there's the charge we just made. And we could also go back in and, what is it, delete? It's not delete, maybe remove. No. There's also a way to programmatically delete things in there. Let's say that you were running a test suite and you want to make a bunch of test charges up to your testing dashboard, and then at the end you want to clean up all the charges that have been made. You can do that as well. So retrieve a charge. You can update. Capture. List all charges. And again, these are you can do these for every bit on there. Or I guess maybe you can't programmatically delete a charge. You can do that with everything else. Interesting. Okay.
That massive hybrid.
Really timed it close, man.
Just keep going, like, 10 minutes.
You can dispute a charge, not delete a charge.
Okay, that is good to know. So,
I bet you could update the amount to zero.
I don't think it works.
I don't think it would update their credit card. You know, they probably also have a well, that and time delayed charges. So if you need to quickly, if they want to go back and delete a transaction, then their credit card wouldn't be charged at that point.
That would be authorized only. You'd authorize only what's hold on their credit, and then you complete the charge later when you want to.
Okay.
But once you've completed the charge, you can't reverse it. You can offset it by credit, but you can't eliminate it.
Yeah,
They have a function for returns, so I guess you just have to go to a return at that point, right?
Yeah, they probably have a soft lock on
Well, it's
things
basically
like
a credit card
charges.
operation.
Yeah.
No merchant can actually delete a charge once it's been processed.
Yeah, you can only refund
Yeah,
it.
you can only issue a credit.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just wipe your family, so it goes back to the card.
Construction is way more distracting tonight than usual. Here comes another one.
Someone's a turn.
I'm not waiting in traffic trying to get here because that traffic sucks.
Oh, it took me 20 minutes to get off at Amelia Street.
Something going on at the stadium, and it was tough for me to get off at OBTs.
Out of curiosity, in regards to credit card charging, do they solve the issue with credit card scammers where they'll check a credit card number using your service and then you'll have to pay for it? So like, they'll steal credit card numbers, they go on the dark web, they'll programmatically run everything through a service in order to find out whether or not that card is valid. And then if anything comes back, you get kind of stuck with some sort of fee. Stripe has anything to offset that?
Or about that.
So does this work with the processor?
These are the processors.
These are the processors.
Yeah, they're essentially managing all of your transactions, and then they will work on your behalf with Visa,
Okay,
MasterCard.
so in my experience, you have to actually call the processor to get them to take back a charge or to alter a charge. You can't just do it. Well, that's typically how it works also.
Considering they have an API for it, I imagine if the credit card companies are still doing that, then they would do it on your behalf. Essentially,
Yeah.
the return API opens up a ticket.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a dispute object over here, and you can send all the things over there.
I see,
They just
yeah.
dispute it with the credit card.
So, as nice as their documentation is, let's look at some different documentation. Okay, this last little bit. Stripe has so they had Stripe.js. If you wanted to have full JavaScript functionality of the Stripe library embedded in your website, if you don't, they have Checkout. Checkout is a JavaScript import. You just really copy paste the information that you need to embed it into your web page, and it gives a little button. The user clicks the button, presents them with a modal. Sounds like a tongue twister. Requesting their credit card information and anything else that is required for the transaction that they need or you specify that you need.
Can you style that yourself?
Yes. As with everything, it's subject to CSS.
Yeah.
So you have complete control to override everything that they do on the style side. You can change the color of the buttons. You can change the entire layout. You can make it look like it's a regular Bootstrap button if you so desired. I want to show a visual example of what the thing looks like. There. There. That's more or less what the default looks like on the web page.
It's pretty slick.
It looks nice.
If you want to capture additional demographic data from the customer at that point and have it pass through to you, you can have those fields too.
Yeah, all of these fields are either all the fields can be pre-populated except for the credit card number, the raw credit card information. I think you even might be able to just put that in there as well. Getting using tokens. There we go. So, assuming that people have at least a cursory familiarity with HTML, it really, after you include the JavaScript, the source files for it in your header, all you need is this form. That's it. It's really slick. And then you can either pre-populate all of the data in there. Here's actually where the publishable key comes. We were using the secret key earlier. Publishable key is for creating those tokens, but this form, again, will only return a token and any the email and other information. This will never return unique user data other than that email. So no one will be able to actually charge someone using your publishable key, which is why we separate the two. Public key and private key sort of crypto. In this example, so we have a private key. Amount, this is $9.99. Same thing, except everything is stringified for some reason. Widget data. The image that they were showing on the front, you can give an image to be embedded in that little circle above the UI. You can also do things such as pre-populate an email. Let's say you're managing accounts. You already know the person's email. They don't need to enter it again into that field. So you can pre-populate it. The field automatically disappears in the UI, so the user never sees it. Then you can also enable things like collecting addresses and comments. Do you want a note to appear on your credit card bill about this? Those kind of fields. So, what would everyone like to see? I know I would like to have some time set aside for discussion on making a living, but I would also like to I would also like to show a basic web app showcasing the full process of having a web page with this embedded, getting a token back, and then at least either making a charge or signing up on a plan.
Can we set one up that would also ask for like their shipping address?
Yeah,
Stuff like
yeah,
that?
we can do that. Okay, as long as everyone's on board, let's get going. So, just going to quickly make, so new folder, let's just call this StripeEye. Oh, I went to search for some reason. There we go. Stripey. And, oops, let it.
Control plus that a few times.
Well, I'm only using that so I can open up a fresh code editor here. Make that a little bigger. Okay, so we should only need 2 files to get this going. We're just going to have an app.py, which is going to host our Flask server, and then we're just going to have an index HTML file. It is not updating up there. How you doing? There it goes. All right. Anyway, so just going to build a very quick scaffolding for an HTML page. That's all we're going to need, except for our, yeah, we're just going to, is this going to have just the form in the body? We need our publishable key back from here. API keys. So publishable key. Put that in. No, I guess that is our publishable key. Yay, Stripe documentation. All right, so let's just save that as is. Everything. Oh, we need to include the header information. Actually, we. I was thinking we needed header information, but it might just import everything from the source. Yeah, because then they have custom handling there. Let's just see what happens when we open up this web page here. Oh, I actually don't need this anymore. Let's go back to our code editor here. Oop. That was not helpful.
Where did you get that? The thing you copied? How do you fill that out?
Okay, so this is the checkout. This is stripe.com/doc/checkout. Oh, it's again not. Oh, there it goes. Checkout reference. So again, they are pre-filling our publishable key into here. Just copied that, and we'll go through how we can customize this in a second, because it has all these parameters down here, including things like enable billing and shipping address. You can have those as separate fields embedded in the same form. Going back here. Okay, so in our base. Fun thing about Python is there's tons of. Okay, I'm thinking of something. What is it? Let's see. Python file server. There is a way to do this. Just haven't had to in a while. Really? That's exactly what I did. A module named HTTP. Oh. Yep. Yeah. I don't. I'm just gonna. I'm gonna go into here because I know that this is running Python 3.7 as it should. So the reason why it's not working is because HTTP. You can't do this in Python 2. Everyone should be on Python 3. Just double checking. You have less than a year. The death clock is ticking. Okay, so http.server. Congratulations, we now have a file server for this folder. So if I were to go to localhost, yes, 8000, it probably isn't going to, yeah, so index.html, ta-da, I didn't have to write a single line of code to have a file server. Pay with card. Look at this wonderful modal. All right. So, these are email, credit card number, and all the other information. You can even click Remember Me. and it will remember you by your phone number for whenever you come back to this or any other website with that same credit card number or phone number. Yay! Now,
That was stupid easy.
yeah. Oh, and yeah, and then here's our pay $9.99. I love this library. Stripe is really nice, and then Square also has something pretty similar. But really, when these tools exist, there's no reason to store credit card numbers and have to do the processing on yourself on your own. Yeah, please don't be Yahoo. Don't do that. So with this right there. So let's say that we're that situation from earlier. We're embedding this on a website, and a user has already logged in. Let's say that this web page is behind a login. If you're using Flask or Django, let's say it's behind an login required on that view. So we already have a user email, and we can do. I think it's not doing that. Back in there, data-email, yeah. Email. Let's see. myawesomeemail.com. Reload the page. Pay with card. No more email prompt. It already knows our email. It's already embedded in that form. We could even disable that remember me button. If they're already logged in, Stripe does not need to remember them. Things like that. The billing name, so if enabled, data billing, yeah, data billing address. Now, considering that they already had stringified the int value, I'm curious if it will, if that's all it needs. Ta-da! So. Just put in something silly. And there's our credit card number.
It doesn't have any functions for like checking valid addresses or anything.
Well,
We have to do that online.
let's actually check. So remember all those credit card numbers I mentioned before? We can actually put in a valid testing number here and see if it recognizes that silly address. Considering the only silly part that we put in there was the street name, or the actual street address, the city and zip code were all still real. Let's see, Stripe, credit card examples. Test card numbers. Awesome. So, a bunch of different things. I'm just going to type 4 and 2 for a little while because that's the answer to everything. And that should give us this is a valid fake Visa card. 4242, 4242, 4242, 4242. 2, da, 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 da. Pay. So no, it doesn't care what the address is. It just says, here's the address. They got charged. You made money, but you don't have to send anything if the address doesn't exist. That might be on your onus.
One is CVC, credit card, CVC check, and then there's an address verification.
Okay.
And the documentation.
Documentation.
Disputes under the disputes. procs.
Okay, highly recommended. So data image is the image up top, name of the company, there's a data description, data amount, locale, ask for the zip code or not, and then the billing address. Then optional, you can change the currency, there's the shipping address, the email that we pre-filled in, label, data, remember me. Where did you see
On
the...
the left side, there's charges. On the left side, you scroll down. Charges.
If it will let me scroll down. Creating charge, there it goes.
And then there's disputes and procs.
Hmm.
And
Disputes
then
aren't real
there's
time.
prevention. Was it?
Disputes aren't real time.
Yeah, I don't think it's real. No, but under prevention, they have to go down. Yep, there you go. It was just that.
Okay. Effective customer communication?
No, ABS.
Address verification, okay. Based on zip code and billing street.
They have a
address.
tool set called Radar, which is built into their API. That's one.
Oh, can be enabled or disabled within in the dashboard. So if we go into our dashboard from here, loading.
It's not hard coded. It's on there.
Yeah. So globally enabled or disabled. All right. So yeah, it'd be in here. Yeah, I would add a rule.
Oh, so they have to say that.
Okay. That is good to know. Hmm? Yeah.
Yeah, under Radar.
Okay, so we showed off the checkout, how we can collect or we don't collect the credit card information, they collect the credit card information. Now let's serve up that same page and build a second endpoint that we can use to process it. So if we go back to our code, we can leave this as is for now. We'll have to come back and change this action to the endpoint that we create. But let's go into here. I might just need to change into a different environment for this, because I don't think I actually have Flask in that one. And if I had a little more time beforehand, I probably would have just created an environment just for this. Oh well. So I know there. So just to verify, Flask. Yes, awesome. Okay. So basic Flask app. Flask is a backend web framework. It's a micro framework. Battery's not included, so you have to build up everything yourself. But that means the hello world for this is fairly simple. All we need to do is import Flask. However, I prefer from Flask import blank personally. So from Flask import Flask, and then we'll come back and do things later like JSONify payloads, and I know that I like doing function parameters and annotations and all that stuff. So I think that might be everything we need. So all we need to do, we create a Flask app. We're just going to give, the first thing it takes is a name of some kind. We're just going to give it the name of the file or module that is currently in. So it's going to be, its name is app. You'll see this in the docs a lot. So views in Flask are just functions. And they all return responses. That's how Flask do. That's the only reason I imported response in the first place, so I can have my lovely function annotations. Oh, yeah, we should import render as well. We're not really rendering anything, but you shouldn't really use Flask to serve static files anyway, even though it is a static file. So we return render template, and we just give it the name of our file in there, index.html. And the last thing we need to do is we use a decorator to actually connect it to our application. We route it, and it's just at the root. And that is our Hello World Flask app for serving that file, essentially. I need to quickly export Flask app equals. Actually, I don't even need to do that. Yes, decorators are. Yeah. So a decorator in Python is a function that takes a function and returns a function.
I see it,
Yeah.
I didn't see that. I was looking for the ads.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's there.
Okay.
It just looks like app.
Okay, yeah, I was like,
So actually, I don't even need. I don't need to export any environment variables because the Flask CLI is smart enough to look for an app file or something that contains an app in it. So in theory, all I should. Oh, there's a thing in there. All I should need to do is Flask. Oh, Flask run. And now it's available localhost 5000. Localhost 5000. Template not found, index.html. Might just be looking for a templates folder. That it was.
oh, wow.
Okay. Ta-da! Yeah, you shouldn't use microframe, or you shouldn't use any what they're called WSGI applications to serve static files.
Why?
It's not efficient. In production, you want all of your static files returned by something like Nginx. That is much faster for static files, and your website is going to have a lot of static file calls. If we come in here, actually it's not even showing it. It's going to request things like the favicons, whether or not they exist, all of your CSS, all of your your JavaScript, local JavaScript, exactly. Your Whiskey apps will be calling Flask in Python, which takes some time. So you can do it. It's not recommended because it's slow. So in a production Python application, you would have Nginx as your lowest level, the first thing those requests hit. If it's static, you set up Nginx to return that information. Otherwise, it then sends the request to your Whiskey app, which then goes into whatever micro framework you're using, or just whatever framework you're using, and then goes to the individual functions in your routing system to then fulfill and send back up the tree.
No one's ever explained that. So thanks.
Yeah. Web, it's complicated, but it's still simpler than front-end development, in my opinion. Anyway, so now we have a Flask app that is serving up this file, and it's all going to work the same as we had before. Now, the reason why we had an error from before is because we didn't have anything that actually fulfilled this form. So our action can just be, let's just call it success or pay, and on a post. So if we go into our app, we'll do app.route route pay, and methods equals, By default, methods is only options, head, and get. These are just different HTTP request types, request methods. Every website that you go to, what you see, you get from a GET request. People are most familiar with get, post, put, and delete. If you've heard of if you're familiar with CRUD style applications, it's just translated from those, really. And then you have things like head and options, which are really just, I want to touch this. I'm a computer. I want to touch this endpoint to see the headers I get back from it, and some other samples like that. But this one is only going to accept post. It's not going to return anything for any other kind of method. We're going to have to pay. And now we need to import Stripe, because we're going to get that, and we need to do stripe.api key equals, need to go back in and get the secret key, copy that. We'll just ignore Stripe for now. And we also need request. Flask does some crazy back-end things where you import this magical object request, and it is always the request information for the request that you get in that current instance. I don't know how they do it. We could look in the docs. We'd spend the entire rest of the meeting trying to figure out how that works, but it does. So let's just do request dot. I think it's just request dot form. Actually, if I do export Flask env equals development, this should put this into an auto reloading whenever I save the file. Yeah, there's our debugger and everything else. So, index, pay, post, awesome. Come back over here, reload it, because we changed the form action. Load this back up. The wonderful place of A, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No verification. We want things to be valid, so press 4.2 for a while. Pay. Success because testing. And the view did not return anything, so let's see what it printed. All right. So all we did was print the form data that we got. We look in here. Here's our immutable multi-dict. This is the information we got back. Here's our Stripe token for that transaction. There's that TOK, MasterCard, Visa, whatever. So there's our token information. We can even say that it was a credit card. We gave it the email, but if we left the email in, it would return the email in there. And then it gives us the billing information as well. Billing address state, New York. I guess that is where 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is located. All right. So we have that information. We can, caps for some reason, we can pull out our token as request.form.token. Actually, no, you can't. I don't think immutable dict allows that. So Stripe token, yes. All right. Print token. Now, let's just have this be a charge, so we can let's say our charge equals from earlier Stripe dot charge dot create. Now create, and from earlier we had our amount. In this case, it was $9.99 because we were charging them just shy of $10. The source is now our token. And the other thing was the currency, yep, which USD. Now, and just so that we return something, let's actually do our JSONify and just return the JSONified value of charge. And I don't know if I need to do something like a charge to dict. I think, yeah, we still have charge over here. Let's see what it looks like. If you're not familiar, you can do dir to just see all of the different items that are associated with an object. So they do implement this dunder dict method there. So our JSONify function should work as is. If not, we can convert to a dict and then feed it in. Let's just see if it works. So save.
Use my comma after currency.
Good catch. Okay, restarted. Going to go back. There we go.
I use have like a feature called you know what I want.
Let's actually do 32803 for downtown Orlando. And then our 42424242s. Okay. Oh, it didn't reboot after adding in the... Okay. Hard reboot. The file is saved for sure. While we're here, I'm just going to disable the billing address. That'll save us a little bit of time. Go back, reload the page just to make sure because browser caching. Pay with card. All right, 4242s. Da, 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 da. Okay. Da, 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 da. Hey, there's our charge. All right. And I'm sure we're going to see a bunch of different things in here. Is in payments. Nope, there's the one. So there's our $9.99 charge made through our very, very short, small website. Yay. Live coding win. And I'm going to take a drink.
That's right.
Strap it to a torso and put it on the dark web.
That's a big one.
All right. So, anyone like to see anything else before we move on to a discussion? Otherwise, let's just move on to a discussion. So, this is obviously a way that you can get paid. This is how you get paid. But if you're not working on a personal project that people want to pay for, you're not going to get paid. Now, just kind of curious, how many people here are employed full time as developers? Any kind of like, how many are part-time developers? How many people have side projects that involve coding? That's at least half. And how many people have never had a programming-related job? That's kind of surprising. This is an interesting mix. How many people have a job that does not directly involve coding, but maybe they use it at work for some reason? Yeah, that's actually about what I was expecting, and I'm going to clear off this board or the screen here and just change it to camera and turn it around if people don't mind. Just camera. There we go. I'm just going to turn around this way. So Hardy and I are actually coworkers. I'm very surprised that it's just me and one other person, let alone on my team, who are fully employed as programmers full time. But of everyone who programs in the world, the biggest chunk of that is people who are not programmers, but they do program for some aspects of their job. One of the most popular Python books, or Python books, series, intro guides, is called Automating the Boring Stuff with Python. It is geared for people who coding and that is not their profession. They're an office worker. They're in a lab somewhere. They're just at home and they have a bunch of menial tasks that they have to do every single day that could be automated very easily if only there was a way that someone could show them to do it so they could free up that 2 hours a day for something that they would rather do. That's most programming, and if anyone tells you otherwise, they're a programmer. Or they want you to become a programmer. So with that in mind, I honestly, I like to hear you guys talk a little bit because I'm a little sick of myself talking for an hour and a half at this point. I can talk about a little bit about what I do as a full-time developer, and is anyone here wanting to become a full-time developer?
I would like to hear like the struggles you had before you got paid, and then into actually getting paid for the first time, like what that was like, how that felt.
So personally, I spent a year and a half after graduating college. And by the way, I'm a theater major.
You really?
In case you can't tell by my animated personality, which I'm actually an introvert, and my focus in theater was production and tech positions. My final project was not being in a show. It was creating a moving light from scratch that could be embedded as though it were any other piece of equipment. I have a minor in computer science, so that's how I got into it. But I spent a year and a half after college just working on personal projects. I didn't get paid. I actually, my co-organizer, Devin, and I took over the Orlando Python meetup almost 4 years ago now, and Devin was a Ruby developer at the time. We just like doing this. And I haven't had a job. Now, when you don't have a job but you want to be you want to go into coding, getting a coding job, the best thing you can do with your time, other than keeping yourself alive by whatever means you have at that time, is to just keep working on projects. Because the most valuable thing you have as a developer, regardless of whatever title you have at a job, is the portfolio that you can show people. When you do get a job, your portfolio will be artificially inflated because you were paid full time to work on things. Now, the degree to which you can talk about what you did at that job, like the specifics, or keeping company secrets and all of that, especially for Hari and I, we're on a team at Disney that's research and development. We can't tell you guys anything. I can tell you my salary. I can't tell you what I work on. But so that artificially inflates your portfolio. When that's not the case, coding, being a full-time developer, some people go after certs. It's a very more old school way of looking at it. Like, no one will trust me as an SQL engineer unless I get this SQL cert from Microsoft saying that I know what I am talking about. That's fallen out of favor a little bit nowadays, especially with open source, because you can now just show everyone what you've worked on. Here's the source code. I write good documentation. If you wanted to use the thing, here's the quick start guide. You'll get it up and running. You can visually inspect my quality of work and the kind of things that I know how to do. That's why that's why GitHub took off as much as it did. In fact, my junior year in college, we had someone come in, and there was a similar kind of thing of how can I go from being a student to a full-time job. The number one thing at the top of their list was open a GitHub account. GitHub had only existed for a year at this point. And it was already at the top of the list just because it was the most easily accessible place to show people your portfolio. You can have a resume site, that's great. Have a website, control a place on the internet, have a custom email. It looks very professional. It costs maybe $12 a year to maintain it. You can show off whatever you want. Put screenshots, have a blog. All of these things, that is your place to control the internet. But if you don't have a portfolio on GitHub, I'm straining to even think of some of the, Bitbucket, GitLab, is another competitor. You need to have a portfolio and a place where people can look at what you've worked on. And that is true regardless of the code that you work on. It's really nice with Python because Python lends itself to being open source because it's not compiled. If you want to share Python library and you don't want to convert things into compiled C code, people download your source files directly. I mentioned looking at the request object in Flask. We can go look at the source files directly on our local machine because that is how Python works. But other languages, you can do that as well. You can put up the source files of your iOS or Android projects or your raw C code. If you're a web designer, there are websites like CodePen where you can put interactive web front-end designs and have, here's the HTML, here's the CSS, here's the JavaScript, and here's a preview window that live updates based on the changes that I make in the box. Have projects available so that other people can see it.
Can I add to that?
Yeah.
Another thing that's cool is contributing to an open source project. So I've done like improvement work. So you find that when you have developers who contribute to a hot open source project, even if it's just for you to do something like go in and read it, and you don't have to write code all the time, but just some type of participation in the project is significant. It differentiates you from the other people that you're going to be competing against for a position. So that's pretty cool if you can do it.
Yeah.
And it's not that hard to get involved with the open source project. So pick something that you like to work with. If it's open source, go to their site, research, get on one of their boards. I shouldn't say boards. I hate using it. It's what's the messaging thing? It's not the forum now.
You're thinking of Slack, dude?
No, Slack. All of them have Slack now, but it wasn't Slack before. It was
Think
another
IRC.
IRC. Yeah, I hate IRC. But anyway, I hope no one's seeing this. This isn't going to go live, is it?
Oh, this is live right
This is
now.
live right now. So yeah, get on the IRC or the Slack, and then see what you can do to get involved. And just simple. Just if you're going to proofread, just if you're going to whatever you have to do to participate to get your name on, and then begin to see if you can then get small projects to do, and then advance from smaller projects to bigger projects. That's really, as a coder, that and GitHub is really important.
Yes.
Yeah, my buddy always told me about events like high school does, where it's made available like this open source projects that are looking for contributors. You have easy things like bug fixes, stuff to get your head in the game. And I've always seen that as an easy way to do that. I haven't done a ton of it, but probably gonna jump on that more in the future after doing that.
Another thing I would say is if you guys have some free time, go to an entrepreneurial meetup because there's always people looking for apps to do prototypes. Link up with them, help them build out the prototype, and go that way.
In fact, well, you mentioned how I got my first job. So I went a year and a half after college, just working on side projects just to build up a portfolio, and started regularly giving talks and organizing this meetup. I got my first job because someone approached me after one of the Orlando Python meetings. Said, "Hey, could you build this thing for us?" Absolutely, great. How's $25 an hour sound? Awesome. Especially as a starting first programming job ever. $25 an hour. What? Okay. To put that into perspective, I think I didn't charge. I wasn't working that $25 an hour full time. I think my first full year programming, as I was with that company for 18 months or so, 18, 20 months. In 1 year, I made $38,000.
Not full time.
No, yeah, I was. I was charging them hourly. It was not full time. It was work from home. I set my own hours. I charged them only for the hours that I worked. It was $38,000. To put that into perspective, and I know I have a coworker here, and I will preface this by saying that as a employee, you are legally protected. You are legally protected to talk about your salary with other employees. Now, an employer might say, "We don't like that," but if the employer is the only one that knows how much they are paying everyone in the company or on a team, they have all of the power when it comes to salary negotiations, because then an employee can't come to a salary negotiation like a new contract and say, well, this person makes this amount of money and I did this list of things better than they did. So prefacing that, because this is live streamed and going to be available for watching later, for the last year and a half, I've had a contract where I jumped from $25 an hour, I had a couple contracts in the middle, and then switched jobs, and it's been paying me $55 an hour. My W-2 from last year was $105,000. And I have I have a contract negotiation coming up as well. So that's that. I mentioned that to say, typically with programming jobs, and to a lesser degree other tech jobs in general, the biggest raises that you get from either contract to contract or position to position come when you change companies. if promotions do not give you a large increase in your income, they might give you an increase in your benefits, or let's say going up to a new position, you'll get more. You'll get more shares every quarter, or you'll get a better deal on something. But looking for raw, either their hourly or yearly wage improvements. Typically, that happens by jumping positions between companies. So that isn't. It is less and less the case that people join a company and stay there until they retire. The market, many factors have led to that decline. That type of corporate loyalty currently. But
that's what happens when people are constantly doing cost measures and trimming their employees.
If you guys have grown to listen to a thoroughly long story, a lot of you guys are interested in development and totally focused on it. But I urge you to open up your minds a little bit and look at development related and other tech positions that will allow you to use what you know without actually having to write code. And so my background is I started as a computer hobbyist when I was in college, but I was a retailer for most of my life. I had my own store and I expanded that to a second store. Well, when I expanded to the second store, I decided I knew enough to write my own point of sale system. So I did. And then in 1995, I did about 1991, I went mail order. And I wrote my own mail order processing company because I couldn't afford the ones that were out there. And then in 1995, the internet came along. Oh, okay, we can do our mail order through the internet. So I got involved in it. And I did that until the early 2000s. And then I got tired of it. So I decided, I still love computers. I love working with programming. I'm going to see if I can do this into a job. But I knew I was going to have to start at the bottom. I went to a recruiting firm and said, listen, I'll do just about anything related to the processing. And we ended up actually over at HP Supply configuring their point of sale systems nationwide, which is not a coding job, it's just a configuration job. Was there for 6 months and got a job with Western Resorts. And there I ended up, don't ask me how, but I was maintaining their internet department service, their internet service for their websites. And along with a coworker there, we were writing an email service provider system for their blast emails to their customers. So I spent another 18 months there. And then my coworker who had left called me up and said, hey, how'd you like to work from home? I'm working for this company and we need somebody else. So I ended up with a small marketing firm, a virtual firm out of New Jersey. And I was working from here and doing that from home. And after 3.5 years there, I ended up with a startup out of Austin that was providing them with a SaaS solution. And I was, again, not coding, but I was diagnosing customers' configurations. I was trying to figure out how to get their systems to connect to the other systems. I won't go into how all that is. It's coding related. It's all HTTP and data communications related, but I don't have to actually write any code. I'm also now, after 7+ years of doing that, I'm also doing the UAT for new features on their platforms. And I'm writing doing training videos and training new employees, and training onboarding new customers, doing all these kinds of things that keep me involved in coding related things, but allow me also to get out and talk to a lot of different people, meet a lot of different people. I've got a portfolio of contacts that if I want to move, I've got a lot of places I could go. And so that's how, if you broaden your horizons and aren't focused totally on, I want to be a developer by next year, There's an awful lot of options out there that are really client friendly, especially if you have the ability to communicate with people. You have something with sales and marketing background. There are a lot of sales and marketing people out there that have to deal with technology that don't know a thing about it.
That's what we got to put out. So I'm a system engineer. And I've been a system engineer since about, I'm not a system engineer now, but I started out in technology as a system engineer. And I work for Microsoft. So I would say to anyone who's looking at this, hey, one of the most important skills that you have as a technologist is the ability to communicate. Most people who do technology have a difficult time. In fact, thinking about most people in technology, the biggest fear in the world, one of the biggest fears in the world is getting in front of a room of people and talking to a room of people that you don't know. If you have to present, that's one of the biggest fears that exists.
This is a learned skill, by the way. I go home and I'm very introverted. This is just, I've gotten accustomed to this over the last 3-4 years.
I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly what has to happen. If you're someone who's a technologist, you should take classes. Go to Toastmasters. Toastmasters offers free speech classes. Go to Toastmasters, do the meetups. Get the ability to be able to articulate the technology, because what you have is a group of business people who have lots of money. You have a group of people who are nerds like us who like playing with technology. And the people who want to play with technology need money for projects, money for software, money for everything else. And the business people don't want to give it to you because they don't understand what it's going to do for them. So you actually need someone who acts as an intermediary. And that intermediary is able to talk business to the business people and technology to technology people, and make sure that the technology people can get what they need to make the business successful.
And those people are so rare and so valuable.
Exactly.
That you can make as much as a coder, as a developer.
I can tell you that it's peers back at Microsoft. It was possible for you to make in that role as an SC. It was possible for you to make easily in the 200s if you were really good at it. System engineer. It's called system engineer. They call them different things. They call them technology specialist, system engineer. But you're the person, like you said, who works with a salesperson.
It also depends something on the size of the company. The startup I use my main customers. Actually, I'm an independent contractor. But the startup who occupies 99% of my time has 30 people. 15 years old has 30 people. Because it's a small company, I'm technically, they call me an implementation engineer. But I do so many other things. I get the opportunity to do so many other things that I wouldn't if I was in a cube in a new company. So,
but the speaking thing is super important. So I would say I'm not a developer, so what I need is that what's happened to me is that I've had a career change. I won't say a career change, but a transition. So I did infrastructure engineering. I never developed for a living. I was developing at a time when Python wasn't popular and we were IDEs. So I was developing with C++ on Borland. And it was so painful that I was done with it. And I wasn't forced to get back into programming until cloud came into existence. And now what's happening is that this is relative to this conversation, there's a paradigm shift that's kind of taken place in the industry. Before, you didn't have to know how to code. So you didn't have to know how to code, you could know how to set up servers, web servers, etc., and you'd do just fine, hardware guy. But what's happened with everything becoming automated, everything becoming what's called infrastructure as code, you have to know how to code now. And that's what kind of forced me, by me doing cloud and everything becoming automated and provisioned via cloud, I have to know how to code now. It's not an option anymore, which forced me to get back into Python.
Let me turn that around the other way. If you're a developer and you're writing code for an app that's going to be non-technical, facing non-technical people, consumer-oriented or marketer-oriented app, you've got to be able to communicate with them. You've got to be able to understand their industry, their point of view, what they understand. One of the biggest fights that I end up having with developers at the startup is with those of them who really are just focused on doing things the developer way and without trying to broaden out a little bit and trying to understand what the end users actually understand first.
In my opinion, two of the most necessary or advantageous characteristics that a developer can have is communication. We just spent a ton of time talking about that. I would also preface communication is not just is between a developer and other developers as well. That Stripe documentation was excellent. Oh my goodness, that was great. And
You
doc-
almost didn't have to be a developer to understand.
exactly, it's awesome. Never underestimate the power of an excellent README file or a quick start guide. You mentioned open source contributions earlier. Sometimes some open source projects really just need someone who understands how to talk to other people, go and say, your README sucks, here's a better one. I had that happen with one of my projects. I'm not proud of it, but it's better for it. And I've kept it up to date since. But then the other one is the ability and the desire to keep learning new things. Like you said yourself, is the world has changed in such a way where you need to learn coding now for your job to be competitive and to stay in the game. If you said I am never going to learn a program, you might not even still be doing that.
Can I tell you this story? I've programmed since I was a kid. I've been programming since I was 10. And when programming transitioned to object-oriented programming, I couldn't grasp, for whatever reason, object-oriented programming just wasn't happening. And I had to do Fortran too in college. I hated Fortran. Hey, I'm an engineer. I hated Fortran. So I transitioned. I went into technology, and then finally, I've had all these ideas that I wanted to implement on the infrastructure side, but I didn't know how to code. And then I didn't realize how fun programming could be again until I started doing Python. And when I touched it, I started working with it. I couldn't believe it was that easy to code with compared to all my other experiences. And I mean, I love it. I love coding now. If you asked me to code before, it was a chore, but now it's not a chore. I actually have fun coding. So that's just how I got into Python. So I would be. This is definitely what I want to have, because what this does is that this gives me, like, for example, quantum. You guys know what quantum computing is? Everyone heard about it? Well, one of the libraries for quantum computing that's offered right now is offered by IBM. So what every company is doing that's coming out with a new technology, they realize that people have to code to it. And the most utilized programming, that's not the commercial, sorry, but the most utilized programming language right now is Python. So everyone's putting Python APIs to connect to this stuff. So like once you have Python, you really kind of have like the secret key. You can use it to go in kind of any direction that you want to go. So I'm going to be playing with, this summer I'm definitely going to be playing with the quantum computer and writing programs for it.
Microsoft offers a library as well.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you bring that up, just because quantum computing is so foreign from the architectures that we've had in the past. The idea that you can go down all branches of a tree simultaneously because quantum computing is based on probability, it blows cryptography out of the water. We have to figure out new ways to keep everything secure.
That's another job you guys might be interested in.
Security is also a good
wrapping,
one.
is going back and kind of wrapping all the legacy code with post-quantum cryptography wrappers. Because all of these things need to be secured with the inevitable failing of SSL.
Like the new light kit.
Yeah. But it's interesting that you brought up the quantum computing and that they are offering such libraries, because even though most people do not have access to the handful of quantum computers that currently exist in the world, and quantum computers, the largest one has 20 bits in it. It's still very research oriented at this point. Actually, that Build 2 years ago, which by the way, Microsoft Build is here in Orlando every year, every fall, so you can go to that. They had one of these cores on display in the vendor booth area, just kind of showing off. Hey, here's one of these. By the way, it will be dipped in liquid nitrogen because it doesn't work otherwise. But it's important that they offer these libraries, just because it is so foreign. They can simulate the experience of running these algorithms on traditional hardware, albeit incredibly slow. But because it is so different, they are offering those libraries so that people are familiar enough with the techniques in order to be ready to go when it is available.
They're just caching the response. Well, it's true. It's true. It's funny. It's like what a million. So they just cache the response. So
what you said about learning new things that was really critical. I could go down the list of things that started Fortran, Microsoft Basic, Pascal, all these old things that I worked with, DBase 3, somewhere along the line I learned Unix, and all this through the years. We've got to constantly move because computing is a fashion industry. There's always a new fashion.
That's the best thing I've heard. It's a fashion industry.
It's a fashion industry.
Yeah.
The robot for me seems to be like, I have the technology that I know, and then if they go out of date, then
It is.
Every 2 years.
like to take a position that would require me to learn new things, it kind of feels dishonest saying I could do it if I'm not sure in myself.
You will never have any job in your life that's worthwhile that you will be prepared for.
That's a good way of putting that.
You will always be learning on the job, no matter what it is. You will never come into a job. The reason they hire you is because they need somebody. The reason they need somebody is because they don't have anybody that's learned it yet. And they already own everybody that's learned it. So, and they need more. So they know, everybody knows they're going to
My first job that I got, I said, yes, I can build that for you. Went home, immediately started looking up documentation because no, I had never touched that before.
That tends to be the norm too.
One of my daughters right out of college got a job at Pixar. She was running part of the team that ran the fund Pixar.
Oh, really? That's cool.
And she came right out of college and she had a background with BS in computer science. But what they needed her to do, she'd never done before. And all through the interview, she said, I just kept saying, when they would say, how would you do this? Well, I don't know how to do that, but I know how to find out.
I will. Yes, I will also add on to that. Computer science degrees do not teach you how to be a good programmer. They teach you how to think like a programmer, which is valuable in and of itself. But if you're expecting to know everything you need to even to be in a junior developer job, just based on what you learned in class as a computer science major, you're not going to be prepared.
Can I just chime in? So I worked for a company. It was a company that was coming from Europe to the United States, and I got the company set up in the incubation program for University of Central Florida. And what happened is that we began to go to UCF, and we needed to hire students as part of the deal for us to do the incubation program. And when we began to go to these computer science students, a lot of them didn't know the basics that they needed to be in a company. So when I would sit down and conduct an interview and I'd say, okay, what do you know about virtualization? What do you know about this? Like begin to go about the tools that we would use, a lot of those students didn't know it. And it wasn't that they couldn't know it, they just were never exposed to it because there's always a lag between what happens in the university and what people are doing. It's usually like a year or 2 year lag between it. So unless you're going to like a really high end, I'm not dismissing that, but
No, I graduated from UCF, so I know that what you learn is not exactly what you do, because you're going to learn something new. Every day. Yeah. I mean, every
unless you're doing some like research or something, like but for the most part, just a regular experience. So, yeah, that's what I've seen from universities. But again, like you said, I think you said it.
you're going to have to learn on the job. Like your biggest talent is your ability to teach yourself. And that's what's going to be the most important thing. It's going to be the ability to figure out how to solve problems and the want to solve problems. You can do that, then you can pretty much take on anything. You have to have good fundamentals.
Have you guys ever heard the saying, excluding boilerplate, our programmers go through about 50 lines of code a day?
Really?
Because when it comes down to actually thinking through the stuff, it's like pretty mind-numbing. Boilerplate's boilerplate. You just got to fix that shit. But when you come in and you're actually solving new problems, 50 lines of code a day.
I will say that actually that's kind of funny. Just yesterday, I built something out for someone else on my team who needed just a back-end socket server. Uh, I I was familiar with the library. I went to their starting guide because I hadn't touched the library in a year to see if anything had changed. It had. I actually just copy pasted one of their examples that looked close enough to what I needed. I changed 15 lines of code, removed 20, and it was exactly what they needed.
It's not in what you actually create, it's what you solve.
Now I have a question for you guys because this has kind of been plaguing me. What is the so I know a lot of companies offer so for example the Googles of the world, they'll offer, or Red Hat, they'll offer code exams. So if you want to go into the company, they'll give you a test, on what you know about coding. There's this one, I think it's a green book. It's how to pass a coding interview. You can find on Amazon.
Oh, the green color book.
It's a green. I think it's called How to Pass.
It's popular book.
It's a popular book. But has anyone experienced that?
Coding interviews exposed.
Is that it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, but how do you? What's the experience with a coding interview? Because it's kind of funny. If I'm given a problem and you tell me to fix it, I know I can pretty much look at anything in a while. It'll take me a while. I can put it together. But if you ask me to code,
Cracking the code.
that's it. Cracking the coding interview. If you ask me to code on demand, then I wouldn't be able to code on demand, and that's kind of where I have to transition from. So,
Have you guys ever heard of Interview Cake?
no.
So Interview Cake, this guy was teaching people out in Silicon Valley how to prepare for coding interviews, and he was covering the major problems like the egg drop and stuff like that. They cover a combination of things like big O notation,
Right.
and he basically at this point he's turned it into like 220 problems or whatever, and it's available in all the languages. I think it's like $100 for 6 months or a year or something like that. But if you can go through and code all 220 of those things on the fly, you're a shit hot programmer.
Really.
There are many websites like that. There's some Interview Cake, HackerRank,
HackerRank. Yeah.
Elite Code.
Yeah.
All these are basically testing your data structures, fundamental algorithms, and all this stuff.
Ran out of battery.
But you wouldn't. The same problem, I have the same problem. If you ask me something, I can't code. But give me a week,
Yeah.
and then I
Exactly.
can code it
Exactly.
really good. But that's what I was talking to a coworker of mine. I told this is not the right way to actually test a person.